I'm going to take roughly 50 round the corner. Okay? Just get it roughly where it's got to go first. Then you can unfold. You see I'm releasing that piece there, taking it over. Just get it where it needs to go. Okay? For here, don't worry too much about the line, because there's lots to remember. But in reality, when you leave here, you must make sure that you work on your lines, because they will become your reference points. Okay, so very, very slowly, you're going to take the paper into the corners, just like that. Okay, we'll come back to those. So here we've got our switch. So we're just going to find the corners, push down on the corners. The pattern paper, we can just push down, that will give us the guidance. Okay, we don't want to mark with a pencil, but the lining paper, we're going to mark those so we know where they are. Just like that. Can you see okay?
Yes.
What we're not going to do is cut from corner to corner, because we'll damage the switch or socket or whatever we're working with. So we're just going to peel that out. Put a small incision in the centre there, like that. That will allow your scissors from there. So we're going to cut from the centre out. Okay? Can you see okay?
Yeah.
Mark, are you going right up to that point?
I'm going right up to that point, but not past that point.
Uh-huh.
Okay? We'll see in a second when I start to put it on now. Okay, so what I'm now going to do, very, very slowly, just going to let that tear itself around there like that. Okay? Now sometimes if the paper's been hung too early, it might start to bubble and crease. This particular paper's got an 8 to 12 minute soaking time. So you can hang it after 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes. So for example, 9.5 minutes might be the best time to hang it, for example. So we're just going to bring that in, like that, nice and slowly. Let that work itself around like that. Yeah, sometimes it might crease up at the bottom. You can always peel it back, and then you can flatten that down and out. Okay, now you're going to go through the middle, tracing out the bubbles. You can see the bubbles there. With this, if you're a little bit too aggressive with it, you might start taking the paste out. Okay, so just be extra careful for me. Or you can use the brush. So we'll go through the middle, out, nice and gentle, nice and careful. Sometimes you might be a little bit too close to the wall, so when you're finished spreading, go outside of your bay, have another look, because you might be able to see the bubbles better. So, for these little envelopes here, we're just going to turn them like that all the way round. Then you're going to release the switch and you're going to tuck those behind using the plastic spatula. The electrics are in the centre there, so you shouldn't come into contact with those. Okay? Now, can you just see this corner?
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm going to find that corner through the paper, nice and gentle into the corner with a pencil. I'm going to mark that corner, fill that piece out. Can you see the pencil mark there?
Yeah.
Using that as guidance, I'm going to cut to that pencil mark. That's going to free up the paper and allow it to go into the corner. Okay? Use the spatula. Sometimes with these spatulas, you can sand the corners down so they're not so sharp, so they don't catch the paper. Like that. Okay? Now, for pattern paper, scissors into the corner, low angle, moderate pressure. Okay? That will give you a crease. Now some decorators will cut on the back crease, some on the front, whatever works for you. I'm just going to show you a few ways of doing this corner. Okay? That will sit into there like that. Okay? You could use a pencil into the corner. Just like that. And we can use the scissors to cut on the pencil line. Okay? This is the sort of thing you would do if you was doing a featured wall or you wasn't actually going around the corners or working into an architrave. You'd finish into the corner like that. Alternatively, we can use our straight edge. This will go between the paper and the knife. Okay, so like that. Make sure that's retracted. And then up into the corner. Moderate pressure with a low angle. Okay, I'm not lifting the knife. If you lift the knife, you won't get as good a cut. Okay, now this can happen where you've lifted the knife and not put it back in the right place. That can happen. Can you see that? So it's important that you keep the knife on the surface. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to go over to this corner now. And I'll repeat that process. Get that nice into the corner. Just like that. Find the corner. Sometimes a blunt pencil would be better. Just be extra careful that you don't put your fingers through it. Take your time. That's the downside of using a thicker paper. It does not go into corners very well. Just persevere with it. Now, when you come round corners, your internal corners are not perfect. So if I was to do that cut, with the same as this one, which you can see Emily's doing next door, you will find that when you paint it, it might fill in that gap. Okay? With experience, with lining paper, it's a bare minimum of 3 coats of paint. So with experience, after painting that first coat, you might see a gap. You might think, I'm not that worried because I know I'm going to give it 2 more coats and that's going to fill that in. You'll see what Amy's doing next door. Okay? So, with experience, after your first coat, you might think, don't matter how many coats I give it, it's not going to fill in that gap. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to put some decorator's cork in there or filler of sorts. We can fill onto the paper, but we must paint the paper first. We can't put filler directly onto the paper because the moisture in the filler or in cork will seep into the paper and lift it. Okay, so it's important that you know that. Okay, now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take the paper around the corner to compensate for that. Wait for things to dry. So we're just going to run that down by 5mm. It can be smaller. That will just help to close up that gap. And then with scissors, we are going to just cut that. It doesn't have to be fantastically even, because it will help to blend it away. Just like that. And that will sit up into there like that. Okay? These other bubbles that you think are bubbles is actually just the adhesive. That's the bubble there, obviously you can see that. Sometimes you can hear it as well. So you can run your hand over and listen out for those. Okay? Tomorrow that will all dry up, tighten up, flatten down, they'll be gone. Okay? Now I'm going to go across the top. Up there like that. Low angle. And you'll get a nice cut like that. If you go on the wrong side, or you're using a wider spatula, like the thickness is wider, you can see the difference there. Can you see that from where you are?
Yes.
Okay. So, keep it nice and low. Again, this all depends on the preparation of the surface as well. Now watch what happens when I change the angle and start doing it like that. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Patching. Okay, so you're going to get a not very nice cut. Okay, so we're going to work our way along. Now this blade might be going blunt now, so remember what I said about changing the blade after every cut. Now here I can't go any further, and it is tempting to do that and end up with something like that, but because I know that I've gone to there, I can work my way out from now over, just like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, once you've done this, tuck that behind, you're now going to go around and you're going to wipe the surface down. That adhesive that's left on now will start to discolour, start to flake as it dries, but also can corrode the paint as well. Okay, so it's important that you use your clean water to go around. Okay? Right, I'm going to show you what we're going to do on the next one. I'm not going to place the large one, I'm just going to use this offcut just to show you what we're going to do next. Okay, for this one here, we're going to take that down, put that up to there like that. Okay, you don't want any gaps. And you can, just very gently, tap that into there. It's very similar to what a seam roller would do. Now with seam rollers, on your instructions for the paper will say use a seam roller or not to use a seam roller. Okay? When you do use a seam roller, sometimes you may have to leave the joints for 5-10 minutes so that they dry out a little bit, so they become a little bit more stodgy, a little bit more tacky. That seam roller can work better. If you go too early on now, because it's still wet and supple underneath, it's just going to splurge out all the paste out. Does that make sense? But this can do the same thing, just nice and gentle, and you can see there, they're starting to blend that away. Okay, now you might see other people leave a millimetre gap. That's fine if you are hanging a pad of paper, that will bridge over that. Perhaps people are worried about it expanding, stuff like that. It might expand, it'll expand into that. Obviously, if you hang it too early, it'll go past that point. If it's larger, then you'll see it. It'll dry and you'll see it. So really, no gaps. Take your time, butt them together. When you paint it, if there's gaps, you've now got to fill it. So now you're going backwards. You're waiting for other things to dry now. It's more work for yourself, okay? Right, okay, so I'm just going to show you that corner. I'm not going to hang another piece. To here, we're going to use our line. What we're not going to do is butt our paper into there. So if we had a bit of a dodgy cut, so I've exaggerated that cut, and we butted the paper in, your paper would go like that. Okay? But the wall might be out and the same thing can happen. So if we work on our line, we've now got a reference point. We're going to take it around. We're just going to pencil into that corner. Fill that out. And we're going to cut on that line. And that will finish into the corner. Depending on how far you come out with that paper, it might be shown when the light hits it, but something like that 5mm will be sufficient, it will blend itself away. Obviously thinner papers will work even better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to, I'll go back over the folding process if you're unsure. Once that's done, we're going to do 2 at a time for here, because we've only got 1 cut there and 1 cut there, that will be easy and manageable. So you're going to put your first 3 on the wall. Then I'm going to talk to you about cutting the bottom one to size, how we're going to do that, how we're going to trim that as well. Okay? Once that's done, you can then move on to your next wall. Any questions? Okay.
Yeah, alright.
Cool.
So you start